Welcome back, and today we are going to be reading Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, Chapter 4. See what that chapter is called. The chapter is called, we can actually here, the Leaky Cauldron. Ooh, I'm excited. So we're going to read all about the Leaky Cauldron, and if you would like to follow along, you may get started. Let's get reading. Okay, actually, let's mark wherever. Page 69 is the bookmark in here. And let's read. It took Harry several days to get used to his strange new freedom. Never before had he been able to get up whenever he wanted or eat whenever he fancied. He could even go whenever he pleased, as long as it was go wherever he pleased, as long as it was in that alley. And as this long cobbled street packed with the most fascinating wizarding shops in the world, Harry felt no desire to break his word, find fudge, and stray back into the Muggle world. Harry ate breakfast and morning in the cauldron, where he liked watching the other guests, funny little witches from the country, up for the day's shopping. Incredible-looking wizards arguing over the latest article in Transfusion today. Wild-looking warlocks, raccoons, dwarfs, and once what looked suspiciously like hag, who ordered a plate of raw liver from behind a thick woodland Pavla. After breakfast, Harry would go to the backyard, take out his wand, tap the third brick from the left above the trash bin, stand back as the archway into Dragon Alley opened in the wall. Harry spent the long sunny days exploring the shops, sitting under the brightly colored umbrellas outside cafes, where his fellow diners were showing one another their purchases. It's a lunoscope, old boy. There's no more messing around with moon charts, see? Or else discussing the case of Sirius Black. Personally, I won't let any of my children out alone till he's back in Azkaban. Harry didn't have to do his homework under the blankets by flashlight anymore. Now he could sit in the bright sunshine out. Oh my. Sit in the bright sunshine outside, fluorescent Scoot's ice cream parlor, finishing all his essays with occasional help from Florine Flesker herself, who, apart from knowing a great deal about medieval witch burning, gave Harry free Sundays every half an hour. Once Harry had refilled his money bag with gold galleons, silver sickles, and brown nuts from his value at Gringotts, he had to exercise a lot of self-control not to spend the whole lot at once. He had to keep reminding himself he had 5 years to go at Hogwarts, how it would feel to ask the Dursleys for Phobos and stop himself from buying a handsome set of solid gold gobstones. A wizarding game rather like marbles, which don't squirt a nasty squid to the other player's face. The point was sorely tempted by the perfect moving model of the galaxy in a large glass ball, which would have meant he never had to take another astronomy lesson. But the thing that tested Harry's resolution most appeared in his favorite shop, quality Quidditch supplies. A week after he arrived at the leaky cauldron, curious to know what the crowd in the shop was staring at, Harry edged his way inside and squeezed among the excited witches and wizards till he gasped at the newly created podium on which was mounted the most magnificent broom he had ever seen in his life. Just come out prototype, a square-jawed wizard was telling his companion. It's the fastest broom in the world, isn't it, Dad? Squeaked a boy younger than Harry, who was swinging off his father's arm. Irish International sides just put in an order 7 of these. The property of the shop, told the crowd. They are favorites for the World Cup. A large witch of Harry moved, was able to read the sign of the broom. Firebolt. This state-of-the-art racing broom sports a streamlined, superfine handle of ash, beaded with a diamond-hard polish and hand-numbered with its own registration number. Each individually selected birch twig in the broom tail has been honed Aberdotti perfection, giving the firebolt an ulcer raton of 150 miles an hour in 10 seconds and incorporates an unbreakable braking price on request. Price on request, Harry didn't like to think of how much gold the firebolt would cost. He had never wanted something as much in his whole life, but he had never lost a Quidditch match as Nubis 2000. And what was the point in emptying his Gringotts vault for the firebolt when he had a very good broom already? Harry didn't ask for the price, but he returned almost every day after that just to look at the firebolt. They were, however, things that Harry needed to buy. He went to a apothecary to replenish the store of potion ingredients, and as the school's robes are now several inches too short in the arm and leg, he visited Madame Malkin's robes for all occasions and bought new ones. Can you guys still see? I can leave. I can't like this. Most important of all, he had to buy his new school books, which would include those for his 2 new subjects: Fear of Magical Creatures, Divination. Harry got a surprise as he looked in the bookshop window. Instead of the usual display of golden molded embossed spellbooks the size of paving slabs, there was a large iron cage behind the glass that held about 100 copies of the Monster Book of Monsters. Foreign pages were flying everywhere as the book grappled with each other, locked together and furious wrestling matches and snapping aggressive. Harry pulled his book list out of his pocket and consulted it for the first time. Monster Book of Monsters was listed as the required book for care of magical creatures. Now Harry understood why Hagrid had said it would come useful. He felt relieved. He had been wondering whether Hagrid wanted to help him if Hagrid wanted help with some terrifying new pet. As Harry entered Flourish, and manager came towards him. Hogwarts, he said brightly. Come to get your new books? Yes. I need. Get out of the way, the manager impatiently, brushing Harry aside. A pair of thick gloves, picked up a large knobbly walking stick and proceeded towards the door, Monsters Book's cage. Hang on, said Harry quickly. I've already got one of those. Have you? Have you? A look of enormous relief spread over the manager's face. Thank heavens for that. I've been bitten 5 times already. This loud ripping noise rent the air from the monster books. Had squeezed the third and were pulling it apart. Stop it, cried the manager, poking the walking stick through the bars and knocking the books apart. I'm never stalking him again. Never. It's been bedlam. Thought we'd seen the worst when we bought 200 copies of Invisible Book of Invisibility. Cost a fortune. We never found them. Well, is there anything else I can help you with? Yes, said Harry, looking down at his book list. I need Unfogging the Future by Cass and Greta Vablaski. You're starting patient, are you? Said the manager, stripping off his gloves and leading Harry to the back of the shop, where there was a corner devoted to fortune telling. The small table was stacked with volumes such as Predicting an Unpredictable, Insulate Yourself Against Shocks, Broken Balls When Fortune Turns Foul. Here you are, said the manager, who climbed the set of steps to take down a thick black-bound book, Unfogging the Future. Very good guide to all your basic fortune. Palmistry, crystal balls, bird traits. But Harry wasn't listening. His eyes had fallen on another book, which was among a display on the small table. Death or Means. What to do when you know the worst is coming. Oh, I wouldn't read that if I were you, said the manager, lightly looking to what Harry was staring. You'll start seeing death ornaments everywhere. It's enough to frighten anyone to death. But Harry continued to stare at the cover of the book. It showed a black dog, large as a bear, and with gleaming eyes. It looked oddly familiar. The manager pressed Unfogging the Future into Harry's hand. Anything else? Said yes, Harry. Yes, said Harry, tearing his eyes away and Daisel consulting the book list. Immediate transfusion in the Standard Book of Spells, Grade 3. Harry emerged from Flourish both minutes later with his new books under his arm and made his way back to the leaky cauldron, hardly noticing where he was going. And people ramped up the stairs to the room, went inside and tripped his books on my bedside. Buddy had been into tidy. The windows were open and the sun pouring inside. Harry could hear the bus rolling by in the unseen Muggle street behind, and the sound of the invisible crowd go Diagon's alley. He caught sound of himself in the mirror over the basin. It can't have been a death. He told his reflection. Definitely. I was panicking and I saw that thing. It was probably just a stray dog. He raised his hand automatically and tried to air lie flat. You're fighting a losing battle there, dear, said his mirror in a wheezy voice. As the days slipped by, Harry started looking wherever he went for a sign of Ron or Hermione. Plenty of Hogwarts students were arriving in Diagon Alley now, with the start of the term so near. Harry met Seamus Wingon and Dean Thomas, fellow Gryffindors, in quality Quidditch supplies, where they too were oogling the firebolt. He also ran into Neville, the real Neville Longbottom, a round-faced forgetful boy outside flourishing bolts. Harry didn't stop to chat. Neville appeared to have mislaid his book list and was being told off by his forbiddly-looking grandmother. Harry hoped she never found out that pretended to Neville while on the run from the Ministry of Magic. Harry woke up on the last day of the holidays thinking that he would at least meet Ron and Hermione tomorrow. Hogwarts Express. He got up, dressed, and went for a last look at the firebolt, and was wondering where he'd have lunch when someone yelled his name. Harry! There they were, both of them, sitting outside Orange Fortress ice cream parlor. Ron looking incredibly freckly, Hermione very brown, both waving frantically at him. Finally, said Ron, getting at Harry. He sat down. We went to the leaky cauldron, but they said you'd left, and we went to Flourish and Bolts at Malkin's, and I got all my school stuff last week, Harry said. Explained, and how come you knew I was staying at the leaky cauldron? Dad, said Ron simply. Mr. Weasley, who worked at the Ministry of Magic, would of course have heard the whole story of what happened to Aunt Marge. Did you really blow up your Aunt, Harry? Said Hermione in a very serious voice. I didn't mean to, said Harry while Ron roared with laughter. I just lost control. It's not funny, Ron, said Hermione sharply. Honestly, I'm amazed Harry wasn't expelled. So am I, admitted Harry. Forget expelled. I thought I was going to be arrested. He looked at Ron. Your dad doesn't know why Fudge let me off, does he? Probably 'cause it's you, isn't it? Shrugged Ron, still chuckling. Famous Harry Potter and all. I'd hate to see what the ministry'd do to me if I blew up. Mind you, they'd have to dig me up first because Mom would have killed me. Anyway, you can ask your dad this evening, staying at the leaky cauldron tonight too. So you can come to King's Cross with us tomorrow. Hermione's there as well. Hermione nodded, beaming. Mom and Dad dropped me off this morning with all my Hogwarts things. Excellent, said Harry happily. So have you got all your new books and stuff? Look at this, said Ron, pulling a thin box out of a bag and opening it. Brand new one, 14 inches willow, containing one unicorn tail hair, and we've got all our books. Pointed at a large bag under his chair. What about those monster books? Assistant nearly cried when we wanted to. What all that? What's stuck? What's all that, Hermione? Harry asked, pointing as not one but 3 bulging bags in the chair next to her. Well, I'm taking more new subjects than you are, I said. Hermione, those are my books for arithmancy, care of magical creatures, divining, the study of ancient runes, muggle studies. What are you doing muggle studies for? Said Ron, rolling his eyes at Harry. You're muggle born. Your mom and dad are muggles. You already know all about muggles. But it'll be fascinating to study them from the wizarding of view, said Hermione fiercely. Are you planning to eat or sleep at all this year, Hermione? Asked Harry, while Ron snickered. Hermione ignored them. I've still got 10 galleons, she said. Check. It's my birthday in September. Dad gave me some to get myself an birthday present. How about a nice book? Said Ron instantly. No, I don't think so, said Hermione compulsively. I really want an owl. I mean, Harry's got Hedwig, you got Earl. I haven't, said Ron. Earl's a family owl. Earl's a family owl. All I've got is Scrabbers. Pulled his pet rat out of his pocket, and I want to get him checked over. He added, placing Scrabbers on the table in front of them. I don't think they agreed with him. Scrabbers is looking. There was a definite drop in his whiskers. There's a magical creature shop just over there, said Harry. Who knew just Dragon Alley very well by now. Could, if they've got some Scrabbers, and get her an owl. So they paid for the ice cream across the street to the magical Minguri. There wasn't much room inside. Each inch of the wall hidden by cages. It was smelly and very noisy because the occupants of these cages were all squeaking, scrabbling, jabbering, or hissing. The witch behind the counter was already advertising a wizard on the pair of double-ended newts. So Harry and Ron did examining the cages. A pair of enormous purple toads sat gulpily, wetly, and feasting on dead blowflies. A gigantic tortoise with a jewel-encrusted shell was glittering near the window. Poisonous orange snails were oozing slowly up the side of their glass, and a fat white rabbit kept changing to the silk top hat and back again with a large popping noise. Then there were cats of every color, very noisy cage of raisin, and a basket of a funny custard colored fur ball. They were humming loudly, and on the counter a vast cage of sleek black rats that were playing some sort of skipping game using their long bald tails. The double-ended newt wizard left, and Ron approached the counter. "That's my cat," he told the witch. "He's been a bit off color ever since I brought him back from Egypt." "Bang him on the counter, witch," said the witch, carrying a pole. "Okay, Jen," pulling a pair of heavy black spectacles out of her pocket. Ron lifted Scabbers off of his inside pocket and placed him next to the cage of his fellow rats who stopped their skipping tricks and stuffed to the wire for a better look. Like nearly everything Ron owned, Scabbers the rat was a second hand. He had once belonged to Ron's brother Percy, and a bit battered. Next to the glossy rats in the cage, looked especially Louis Begon. Said the witch, picking up Scabbers. "How old is this rat?" "Don't know," said Ron. "Quite old. He used to belong to my brother." "What powers does he have?" said the witch, examining Scabbers closely. The truth was that Scabbers had never shown the faintest trace of interesting powers. The witch's eyes moved from Scabbers' craterly left ear to his front paw, which had a toe missing, and headed loud. "Has been through the mill this one." "He's been through the mill this one," he said. "He was like that when Percy gave him to me," said Ron tensely. "An ordinary common or garden rat like this can't be expected to live long years or so," said the witch. "Now, if you were looking for something a bit more hard-wearing, you might like one of the indicated black rats." Promptly started skipping again. Ron muttered, "Show-offs. Well, if you didn't want a replacement, you can try this rat, Tom," said the witch, under out a small red bottle. "Okay," said Ron. "How much?" "Ouch!" Ron buckled some and propelled itself, spitting back at Scabbers. "No! Crookshanks, no!" cried the witch. Scabbers shot from between her hands like a bar of soap. Landed slightly, legged on the floor, and then scampered toward the door. "Scabbers!" Hans shouted, racing out of the shop after him. Harry followed. It took them nearly 10 minutes to catch Scabbers, who had taken refuge under a waste bin outside Quality Quidditch Supplies. Ron stuffed the trembling rat back into his pocket and straightened up, massaging his head. What was that? It was either a very big car or a quite small tiger, said Harry. "Where's Hermione?" "Probably getting her owl." They made their way back up the crowded street to Magical Mingiri. As they reached it, Hermione came out, but she wasn't carrying an owl. Her arms were clamped tightly around the enormous ginger cat. "You bought that monster?" said Ron, the mouse hanging on. "He's gorgeous, isn't he?" said Hermione, glowing. "It was a matter of opinion," thought Harry. The cat's ginger fur was thick and fluffy, but it was definitely a bit bull-legged, and his face looked grumpy and oddly squashed, as though it had run headlong into a brick wall. Now that Scabbers was out of sight. However, the cat was purring contentedly in his arms. Hermione, that thing nearly scalped, said Ron. You didn't mean to, did you, Crookshanks? Said Hermione. And what about Scabbers? Pointing at the lump in his pocket. He needs rest and relaxation. How is he going to get it with that thing around? That reminds me, you forgot your rat toxin, said Hermione, clapping that small red bottle in Ron's hand. Stop worrying. Crookshanks will be sleeping in my dormitory, and Scabbers and what's the problem? Poor Crookshanks. That witch said he'd been in there for ages. Nobody wanted him. I wonder why, said Ron sarcastically as he set off towards... Wait 1 minute, guys. As he set off towards Leaky Cauldron, they found Mr. Weasley sitting in the bar reading the Daily Prophet. Harry, he said, smiling as he looked up. How are you? Fine, thanks, said Harry, as Ron and Hermione joined Mr. Weasley with all their shopping. Mr. Weasley put down his paper and Harry saw the now familiar picture of Sirius Black staring up at him. Still haven't caught him then, he asked. No, said Mr. Weasley, looking extremely grave. They've pulled us all off our regular jobs at the to try and find him, but no luck so far. Would we get a reward if we caught him? Said Ron. It'd be good to get some money. Don't be ridiculous, said Mr. Weasley, who on closer inspection looked very strange. Black is not going caught by a 13-year-old wizard. It's the Azkaban guards who'll get him back. Mark my words. At that moment, Weasley entered the bar laden with shopping bag and followed by the twins, Fred and George, who were about to start their 5th year at Hogwarts. The newly elected head boy, Percy, and the Weasley's youngest child and only girl, Ginny. Ginny, who has always been very taken with Harry, seemed very more heartily embarrassed than usual when she saw him. Perhaps because he saved her life during their previous year at Hogwarts. She went very red and muttered hello without looking at him. Percy, however, held out his hand solemnly as though he and Harry had never met and said, Harry, nice to see you. Hello, Percy, said Harry, trying not to laugh. I hope you're well, said Percy, shaking hands. It was rather like being introduced to the mayor. Very well, thanks, Harry, said Fred, elbowing Percy out of the way and bowing deeply. Simply splendid to see you, old boy. Marvelous, said George, pushing Fred aside and squeezing Harry's hand in turn. Absolute spiffing. Percy scowled. That's enough now, said Mr. Weasley. Mom, said Fred, as though he had only just spotted her and seizing her hand too. How really corky to see you. I said that's enough, said Mrs. Weasley, folding her shopping in an empty chair. Hello, Harry, my dear. I suppose you've heard our exciting news. She pointed at the brand new silver badge on Percy's chest. Second head boy in the family, she said, swelling with pride. At last, Fred. Why is it like this? At last, Fred muttered under his breath. I don't doubt that, said. What? Why is this all? Here we go. At last. Wait. At last, said. Oh, it says and last. Fred muttered under his breath. I don't doubt that, said Mrs. Weasley, frowning suddenly. I noticed that they haven't made you perfect. What do we want to fix for? Said George, looking bolted at the very idea. It'll take all the fun out of life. Ginny giggled. You want to set a better example for your sister, that Mrs. Weasley. Ginny got other older brothers to set an example, Mother, said Percy loftily. I'm going up to change for dinner. He disappeared and George hid aside. We tried to shut him, told Harry, but Mum spotted us. Dinner that night was a very enjoyable affair. Tom, the innkeeper, put 3 tables together in the parlor. The 7 Weasleys, Harry and Hermione, ate their way through their 5 delicious courses. How are we going to get to King's Cross tomorrow, Dad? Asked Fred as they dug into the nugget pudding. The ministry's providing a couple cars, said Mrs. Weasley. Everyone looking. Why? Percy, because of you, Pierce, said George. There'll be little flags on the hoods. HB on humongous big head. This big, said Fred. Everyone except Percy and Mrs. did to their pudding. Why are the ministry cars, Father? Percy asked the jinglest voice. Well, as we haven't got one anymore, said Mr. Weasley. And as I work there, they're doing me a favor. Harry's voice was casual, but Harry couldn't help noticing that Miss Pierce had gone red like Ron did when he was under pressure. Good thing too, said Mrs. Good thing too, said Mrs. Weasley briskly. Do you realize how much luggage you've got between you? A nice sight you'd be on Muggle Underground. You're all packed, aren't you? Ron hasn't put all his new things in his trunk yet, said Percy, in a long-suffering voice. He dumped them on my bed. You better go and pack them properly, Ron, because we won't have much time in the morning. Mrs. Weasley called down the table. Ron scowled at Harry. After dinner, everyone felt full and sleepy. One by one, they made their way upstairs to their rooms to check their things for the next day. Ron and Percy were next door to Harry. He had just closed and locked his own. They heard the angry voices through the wall and went to see what was happening. The door of number 12 was ajar and Percy was shouting. It was here on my bedside table. I took it off for polishing it. Haven't touched it, all right, Ron roared. What's up? Said Harry. My head badge boy is gone. My head boy badge is gone, said Percy, rounding on Harry. So Scabbers, those Scabbers rat toxin, said Ron, throwing things out of his trunk to look. I think I might have left it in the bar. You're not going anywhere till you found my badge, yelled Percy. I'll get Scabbers' stuff unpacked, Harry said to Ron, and he went downstairs. Harry was halfway along the passage to the bar, which was now very dark, when he heard another pair of angry voices coming from the parlor. A second later, he recognized them as Mr. and Mrs. Weasley. He hesitated, not wanting them to know that he'd heard them arguing, when the sound of his own name made them stop and then make them closer to the parlor door. Makes no sense not to tell him now, Mr. Weasley, sang heatedly. Harry's got a right to know. I've tried to tell Fudge. He insists on treating Harry like a child. He's 13 years old, and Arthur, the truth would really terrify him. And Mrs. Weasley, surely, do you really want to send Harry back to school with that hanging over him? For heaven's sake, he's happy not knowing. I don't want to make him miserable. I don't want to put it on his guard, retorted Mr. Weasley. You know what Harry and Ron are like, wondering by themselves. What if even ended up in the Forbidden Forest? But Harry mustn't do that this year. When I think what could have happened to him that night he ran away from home, if the night bus hadn't picked him up, I'm prepared to bet he would have been dead before the Ministry found him. But he's not dead, he's fine, so what's the point? Molly, they said Sirius Black's mad, and maybe he is, but he was clever enough to escape from Azkaban, and that's supposed to be impossible. It's been a month and no one's seen hide, not hair of him, and I don't care what Fudge keeps telling the Daily Prophet. We're nowhere near catching Black, then inventing self-spelling wands. The only thing we know for sure that Black's after. But Harry will be perfectly safe at Hogwarts. We thought Azkaban was perfectly safe, but if Black can break through Azkaban, he can break out of Azkaban, break into Hogwarts. But no one's really sure that Black's after Harry. There was a loud thud on the wood, and Harry was sure Mr. Weasley had banged his fist on the table. Molly, how many times do I have to tell you? They didn't report it in the press because Fudge wanted to keep it quiet. But Fudge went in the press because Fudge wanted to keep it quiet. But Fudge went out to Azkaban the night that Black escaped. The guards told Fudge that Black has been talking in his sleep for a while now. Always the same words. He's at Hogwarts. He's at Hogwarts. Black is deranged. Molly, and he wants Harry dead. If you ask me, he thinks murdering Harry will bring you know who back to power. Black had lost 12 years alone in Azkaban. Too broad on that. There was a silence. Harry leaned still closer to the door, desperate to hear more. Well, Arthur, you must do what you think is right, but you're forgetting Albus Dumbledore. I don't think anything could hurt Harry at Hogwarts while Dumbledore's headmaster. I suppose he knows all about this. Of course he knows. We had to ask him if he minds the Azkaban guards stationing themselves around the entrances to the school grounds. He wasn't happy about it, but he agreed. Not happy? Why shouldn't he be happy if they're going to catch Black? Dumbledore isn't fond of Azkaban guards, said Mr. Weasley heavily. Nor am I, if it comes to that, but when you're dealing with a wizard like Black, sometimes you have to join forces with those you'd rather avoid. If they're to save Harry, then then I will never say another word against them, said Mr. Weasley wearily. It's late, Molly. We'd better get up. Harry heard chairs move as quietly as he could, and he hurried down the passage to the bar and out of sight. The parlor door opened, and a few seconds later, footsteps told him that Mr. and Mrs. Weasley were climbing the stairs. A bottle of rat tonic was lying under the table when they sat at earlier. Harry waited until they heard Mr. and Mrs. Weasley's bedroom door close and then headed back upstairs with the bottle, heaving with laughter as they listened to Percy's dismantling his and Ron's room search of the bags. We've got it, Fred whispered to Harry. We've been improving it. Badge, now read, big head boy. Harry forced a laugh when he went to give Ron the Ron tonic and then shut himself in the room and lay down on his bed. So Sirius Black was after him. That explained everything. Fudge had been lenient with him because he was so relieved to find him alive. He'd made Harry promise to stay in Diagon Alley, where there are plenty of wizards to keep an eye on him, and he was sending 2 ministry cars to take all to the station tomorrow so that the Weasleys could look after Harry until he was on the train. Harry lay listening to the muffled shouting next door and wondering why he didn't feel more scared. Sirius Black had murdered 13 people with one curse. Mr. and Mrs. Weasley obviously thought Harry would be panic-stricken if he knew the truth, but Harry happened to agree wholeheartedly with Mrs. Weasley that the safest place on earth was where Albus Dumbledore happened to be. People didn't always say that Albus Dumbledore was the only person Lord Voldemort had ever been afraid of. Surely Black, as Voldemort's right-hand man, would have been just as frightened of him. And then there were these Azkaban guards everyone kept talking about. They seemed to scare most people senseless, and if they were stationed all around the school, Black's chances of getting inside seemed very remote. No, all in. The thing that bothered Harry the most was the fact that the chances he's visiting Hogsmeade now looked like 0. Nobody would want Harry to leave the safety of the castle so Black was caught. In fact, Harry was suspected his every move would be carefully watched till the danger had passed. He scowled the dark ceiling. Did you think he couldn't look after himself? He escaped Lord Voldemort 3 times. He wasn't completely useful. Unbidden, the image of the beast in the shadows of Magnolia Crescent crossed his mind. What to do when you know the worst is coming. I'm not going to be murdered, Harry said out loud. That's the spirit, dear, said his mirror sleepily. And that was the end of, what was that chapter called? The Leaky Cauldron, and next chapter will be the Dementor. I'll see you next for that. Peace out. Bye.